ritual is a big part of the work that I do. And the reason for this is because ritual and ceremony are two of the main languages of the unconscious. And I believe flower essences really help us by navigating the unconscious parts of the self. So they help this, what I was talking about, this subtle, deep healing, is that they manage with the signature of the plant, manages to help us to navigate these places that in our everyday life, when we're in our left brain, we can't get to. But in order to navigate these places, we need language. Language can be in the form of flower essences or aroma, because they have an internal language that they stimulate. But they're also the language of ritual, ceremony, dreams, art when it's done from a place that's not left brain, it's not thought about, but it's felt, being in nature. All these things are a very important part of the healing journey, and flower essences are one of them. But I'm speaking about ritual particularly here because once I got to America, I had to have a hysterectomy because I had cancer of the cervix going into the uterus. And I asked the gynecologist if I could reclaim my uterus. I wanted to do a ritual with it. And so that's what I did. And I made a fire on the mountain and really tuned into what I was holding, why I'd got cancer for a start in my uterus, and what I was holding there. And again, I was lucky enough to be accompanied by this beautiful land and the fauna and flora that live on this land. And I realized that these traumas had affected my whole life and had culminated in this cancer. So there we go, I had a ritual. And in my naivety, I thought, well, there we are, done my ritual, now I can heal, I'm healed. And of course, I was wrong. In fact, that ritual became the doorway for this gestation that I was talking about, this gestation, you know, when a baby's gestating in the womb, it's the same as us going into the underworld. We have to go into the dark in order to grow and renew. And most of us are frightened of it, including myself. You know, going into the underworld and facing these parts of ourselves can be very frightening. But this is really what I was led into, 5 years of deep navigating of my own underworld and the darker places within myself, and that I had inherited. And I'd always been interested. In France, I trained in a thing called décodage biologique, which you can translate as biological decoding. And in America, they call it biogeneology, which means that we're looking at the physical symptoms and the underlying emotional conflicts behind physical disease. And this is again where the flower essences come in. But first of all, you need to again know the language of disease in these terms. So in a way, we can look at it as the physical body is always looking for a solution. When we think we've got cancer, we're like, oh, my body's turning against me, my body's not supporting me. But actually, no, the body is supporting you. The body is looking for a solution. The body is trying to get your attention. The body is trying to heal something. And that's where, when you look at the emotional symbolism behind whatever the physical difficulty that you're dealing with, then we can get some really good openings into the healing. And so here I was with cancer of the uterus, which when I researched it and tuned into it was really about, cancer is an alarm bell for a start. And it was really about deception and betrayal. And very much deception and betrayal in partnership. So if you think, my cancer was right where the cervix, and this is one of the reasons why they missed it actually, because it was deep in the cervix as the cervix enters the uterus. And when I got my uterus back, I could see where they dyed the cancer cells before the oncologist dyes them before taking them out so that they don't miss any. So I could see exactly where it was. And it's at that point where the masculine enters the feminine for partnership and creation. And so this made a lot of sense for me because my ancestral trauma was about colonization of India and how my great-great-grandmother, who was tribal from northeast India, had been had her children taken away when her British husband died because they didn't trust her worthiness as a mother because she was native. And that trauma had rippled down. One of the things I think that's very important to mention about the work of flower essences with ancestral trauma is that trauma echoes. If things have not been integrated in the past, have not been healed, they will ripple like an echo through the next generations. Often, if people are interested in this work, they'll jump a generation like genetic disease often does. They sort of take the form of a thread of DNA. So I and my great-great-grandmother and my grandmother all had a similar reaction to the trauma that happened in our lineage. And here it was showing itself in my physical cancer. Okay, so back to the desert. I wanted to, just before I get on to the actual flower essences, I wanted to show you another very close area, but how varied and different the lands are. So this is where the Rio Grande has eaten its way into what was an ancient seabed. And then as the river came through over generations and generations and generations, it's eaten its way into the land. So this is called the gorge. And a lot of the flower essences that I worked with and made were from areas like this. So here again, we're looking at plants that aren't your usual garden plants. They're not plants you're going to have growing in lush, beautiful places where there's plenty of rainwater and lovely, nourishing soils. These are plants that grow where there's very little organic matter, where there's, you know, it's the desert, and the desert is officially a desert because there's so little rainwater. Look at the rocks. The plants you hardly see. You know, the plants that helped me heal and that I made flower essences from hide out. They're secret. You can't see them. Look at this land. You would think, well, there aren't going to be many flowers there, but there are. And they call you. And this was very important for me to really sort of allow myself to tap into the adaptability of the people that have lived on these lands for 3,000 years and the plants that have accompanied them. And really that was what this range of flower essences that I created and that helped me heal trauma, that I would say the underlying supportive energy was this adaptability and this resilience. Okay. Okay. This slide is just, these are, it's Valeriana arizonica. So it's a valerian, very small valerian that grows in certain areas here. I love the photo because you can more or less see the signature of the plant being absorbed by the water. And I've just put this up here because for those people listening, I'm sure everybody makes flower essences. This is a flower essence conference. So, but I did want to put this up with the link if people want to know how to make their own essences or how I make them. There's a whole blog post on it. So I didn't want to waste time here, but I wanted people to be able to have that information if they needed it. Okay, on to the actual essences. So this one, kingcup cactus. This beautiful cactus is really the symbol of how these plants supported my trauma healing journey.